like everyone cares about golf for different reasons. Some people watch the show because they like to learn about how to play better golf from Smylie and the people he has on. Some people like to hear stories, some people, they just care about the game of pro golf intensely. Other people just like to gamble, and they just want some hot tips from Smylie who's out there, and we try to give them to them.
Pine Talk is where Carolina golf's past, present, and future come together. We dive into the stories, courses, and people that make Carolina golf special. Because golf here is more than just a scorecard.
Welcome back to Pine Talk. Today I am joined by Charlie Hulme. He is the co-host of the Smylie Show. He's originally from California, but now calls North Carolina home. And this week he's in Charlotte for the PGA Championship. But today we're out at TPC Piper Glen for the Invited Clubs Creator Series. So shout out to them for having us out. Charlie, obviously I want to dive into your history first and kind of learn about, everything you've done, because researching this, I throw your name into Google and your LinkedIn pops up, and you had for some reason I thought your LinkedIn profile was just so neat with your resume, between all of the media stuff you've done with ESPN and Sirius and a lot of this. Can you just run me through your experience and all the things that you've kind of done?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really fun ride, and I'd also say that it ties into what you're doing here, because it all started at the University of North Carolina, being in the journalism school there. My granddad went to Carolina, and my mom's side of the family's from the South, and so I in looking at schools where I wanted to go, there were a lot in California where I felt like I was going to stay home, and then got the opportunity to come to Chapel Hill and just change my whole life trajectory. And so, really falling in love with this part of the world, and then going to a school like that, opening up doors to work at ESPN. And yeah, I mean, it was Bristol, Connecticut for a few years to do producing highlights for SportsCenter, and then doing some early social media TV integration stuff for Sports Nation and First Take, a little bit, stuff like that. And then went to New York City to work on an ESPN late night show, and then went from there to work on the Le Batard show in Miami for a couple years. And then they kind of changed the way that was formatted, so they produced that at DC, moved to DC, met my wife there, got married in DC, also worked on, Pardon the Interruption, Around the Horn, highly questionable at the time, Le Batard show. And then we were in DC when the pandemic hits. My wife's changing careers. She got into nursing school at Duke, and I just said, let's move back to the Triangle. Love it here, have friends here, and I'll kind of do some freelance work, project work. And then one thing led to another. Ended up connecting with a guy who I interned with when I was at Carolina, who was running SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio. So we connected there, and then a couple months later they signed Smylie. They asked me if I wanted to develop the show. I say, I just want the show. Just let me connect with him. And now I'm sitting here talking to you at TPC Piper Glen. It's been a really fun journey.
Dude, that's insane. And I was just thinking about it, I spent my childhood, I grew up, I woke up at 6 a.m. I watched ESPN. I watched Pardon the Interruption. I watched, Mike Wilbon, Tony Kornheiser, all of that. I love that. And that just reminded me of my childhood. Was ESPN, was that stuff a childhood dream for you? Did you have that?
Absolutely. It's interesting. I mean, in some ways it's sad, but it's just it's the way content goes, where it evolves to follow the, most efficient way to consume. So by that, I mean, we all grew up with SportsCenter was this iconic brand, this iconic show, and it was literally appointment viewing, in the sense that if you wanted to see your team's highlight and they didn't have the rundown at that time, it's I think it airs if SportsCenter starts at 6, I think it's going to be at 6:45, but I got to watch everything in between to make sure I don't miss it. Whereas now, if you and I want a highlight, if I want a North Carolina football highlight, I'm just going to go find it on social media, right?
Yep.
But when we were younger, there are all these iconic anchors and catchphrases, and in your mind, it's I want to be a SportsCenter anchor someday. And so that being my first job out of college was incredible, and just the education you get there. Just because there's just so many resources, so many smart people, it couldn't have picked a better way to start working in journalism, digital media, whatever you want to call it, in sports, than that sort of path. So it's fun. It's fun, yeah.
And did you get to interact with any of the big guys that are on the shows? Did you have any stories or anything you're, I guess, allowed to share?
Man, stories. Golly, yeah. I had to think back. I mean, there are definitely some I could share. Definitely some I probably shouldn't share.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the most interesting one was, or the most interesting sort of time was being a kid fresh out of college and working in Bristol, Connecticut. And it's almost like going from college back to high school, because it's a really small sort of town. Everybody that you're interacting with, like both professionally and socially, all work at ESPN. For me, you have your off days are like Monday, Tuesday, and your work hours are 4:30 p.m. to like 2 a.m. So you're just everything you're doing is with this group of people. You have a cafeteria like high school where you're all congregating in the same place to eat at the same time. And so it was just fun to see how, that being the sort of genesis story, and like seeing how talent anchors, how they would, go out and enjoy the nightlife there, and you develop relationships with them beyond just the screen. And that's kind of a pinch yourself moment too, right? Where you've just watched these people while you're in college all these years, and all of a sudden now you're interfacing with them. But I mean, all the talent I worked with were awesome. They were unique and smart in different ways, and it took me a lot of different places too, which is really cool.
And where did golf come into the picture for you?
So I say, like, I grew up in a golf family, really, really lucky in that sense, but I was just too stupid and hard-headed to like actually play golf when I was younger, which I probably should have. I played a lot of baseball when I was younger, a couple of the sports, well, tennis a little bit too, but I just did not, for whatever reason, want to play, golf competitively. I think I probably played in a couple tournaments, probably shot like 120s. This is not for me. My brother really took it seriously. He was like a scratch player, could have played in college, but so what that meant though is just growing up, I got to play a lot of cool courses with my grandfather and my parents and places like that. And so, and as soon as I could stand up, they had a golf club in my hand and I was swinging it. So then all these years later, when I'm kind of falling back in love with the game, it's easy to find those fundamentals again. And then also having a passion on the media side of it, and having the kind of connection to get me back into that world, it all kind of dovetailed nicely. It's like, I wonder sometimes if I'd played when I was younger, and if I'd watched and covered it, more intensely when I was younger, would I have burnt out on that and not been able to do what I did now? So I don't know, but it's cool to have found that love and now to be able to pass that on to my kids. Watching my 2-year-old son hit golf balls in the backyard with a big smile on his face. It's like it's reliving a childhood all over again in a very, very cool way. It's one of the great things about this game.
Yes, absolutely. And so I have to ask, because I'm very curious, because when I listen to your guys' stuff, you have probably one of the more most perfect announcer style voices. Is that something is that something in college that was trained, or were you born with this?
It's so funny. I mean, it's a very flattering compliment, so thank you. And I don't, maybe just the fact that I consumed a lot of sports media, or hearing a good anchor on SportsCenter deliver a line a certain way, that just you kind of learn by osmosis. I also think too it's a very underrated thing to have spent, everyone wants to be on camera for the most part. They see themselves as the anchor. They want to, kind of pursue that dream. But if they don't, a lot of those people end up in production and that's a great job too. But all those years where maybe in my heart of hearts, I wished I could have pursued a different start to my career, and being an anchor in a small town, or however you're going to go about pursuing that, what that was replaced with was doing a lot of high-level production and being around the best of the best that are on cam. So you just are observing and observing and observing and learning. And so then, when this sort of random opportunity falls in your lap, okay, you're going to develop the show with Smylie and produce it, but Smylie kind of needs to have a second voice to bounce ideas off of, and you get plugged in. It was oddly not as stressful as I thought it might be, because it was just, oh wait, you've been structuring all these shows for years and telling people how to talk about these things, and listening to what sounds the best and then editing it to that form. Now you just are doing that, but you're sitting in the chair holding a microphone. And so I don't know if that answers the voice question. I guess I got blessed in that sense, but just in terms of how to talk about it, how to pace it, observing really helped a lot.
You were like the Patrick Mahomes who sat for a year and then you came in the starter.
Or a few, sat for about 7 years, and then
you're the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers style.
That's right. But it's and I think look, we're all everyone wants to enjoy success quickly. I'm a very impatient human being, so that type of thing's hard. But then I think sometimes when you get to the end goal or the payoff, you're like, oh, you know what? I'm glad I was able to be patient, whether that was forced or not.
Absolutely. And so I want to talk some more about the Smylie Kaufman Show. Mm-hmm. Do you have any guest that comes to mind as maybe the most entertaining you've got a chance to interview?
Oh, man, I mean, Kevin Kisner. I saw Kiz again last night. Shout out to Kiz. I'm trying to get my family down here on Saturday. So take my son to his first major championship, my daughter, and I'm looking for a ticket, and I'm speaking like offhand to Smylie. I'm like, hey, do you know of anyone who might have an extra? And Kiz like overhears me says, I'm a Ryder Cup assistant captain. I'll make sure I get you sorted. 3 minutes later, tickets in my inbox. But Kiz, you're a legend. But he was hilarious. The stories he told, President's Cup stories, stories of the Zurich class. I mean, the guy's he's a machine. He's one of the most entertaining people I've ever met. We have one coming out the Wednesday after PGA Championship with Jason Duffner that had it all. Like, I knew Duff was going to be entertaining, but it had, for people that listen to the show because they want to pick up like the technical how to get better at the game of golf, it had like some short game grip stuff and angle of attack stuff that I'm over here with my camera off, like grabbing a wedge, like trying to follow along. It had that. It had a really interesting discussion about the mental side of golf and yips that both he and Smylie went through, that you're thinking about the way you talk to yourself on the golf course. It had some amazing stories. I mean, I cannot wait for people to see this episode. But Duffner was great. But yeah, I mean, a lot of them are really entertaining, but a lot of them are again, really informative. Like the Victor Hovland episode, the Max Hulme episode, we're looking at video from their swing instructors. And again, you're trying to learn and get better by watching this. It's just, I love this job for so many different reasons, and I love co-hosting with Smylie, but sometimes more than that, I love just learning from the people he brings on the show. It's the best if you love golf like that. And
that's what I really appreciate about your guys' content, because you're taking these people that you see on the course, and it's like it gives them that laid-back, casual version to where like it's not like they're on TV post-round getting interviewed. It's like, hey, like let's have a casual conversation and learn about you, kind of thing.
I think that's kind of the idea, whether or not we did that intentionally. Like I think I was talking to our producer Jackson about this on the way over, where we actually, of all the shows I've produced in my life, this is by far the least formal preparation I've ever done. But I think it comes off in a more organic way because of that. Now, I'm not saying we don't know what we're talking about, because we consume the golf all the time. We're watching, like we care about it, so it's easy then to go on and talk about it. But in terms of formal prep, I think trading off, allowing for an episode to, have little lull moments where I'm checking on something on Data Golf, like trading that for a conversation that feels very much more authentic and organic, I think it's resulted in a better sounding show, just a more relaxed show. And I think that same thing with guests. We prepare, of course, for all our guests, but really at the end of the day, it's just Smylie authentically having someone sit in front of him and just kind of pulling the yarn on whatever they're telling him that's interesting, and just remembering old stories together and things like that I think is, we may never be the most polished, rigid show, but we're going to bring to you a feel that we hope that is makes you feel like you're hanging out with us right here, sipping a drink on a chair, outside of a golf course, and just having a relaxed time and learning a little more about the game of golf.
Yeah. So did you know like right away that like, because you guys very like clearly, it looks like you guys it feels like you guys have been friends for a long time. Like, was that just a very quick connection?
It's funny. It's like it was totally arranged marriage. We didn't know each other before that. I think it helped a lot that we were similar phases of life, similar kind of worldview. His daughter, I think, is probably about 3 or 4 months younger than my son, and then now we have a little girl now as well. But just it's just so nice to say, okay, we have to record at this time. It's like, hey, bedtime's going really tough tonight, man. Can we push back another 30 minutes, or can we try to? There's just, I think there's less pressure attached to the process of creating something when both you guys are okay with letting life happen the way it's supposed to for young fathers. I think that really from the get-go set a good tone for both of us. And then we just, I think we just like the same things. We were same sensibilities, and so it's funny. Like we just. The one thing you can't solve for if you're trying to develop or produce a show is chemistry, and you don't know if you're going to have it, and we're lucky that it kind of came together the way that it did.
So I'm going to take this one from one of your guys. I don't know how recent it was, but it was the interview with Willie Wilcox.
Yes.
And Smylie asked him, what was like your first oh no moment that happened on the course? And Willie Wilcox, he like brings up a story about losing one of Sungjae Im's wedges.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, have you had what was your first oh no moment?
Yeah. The best one by far was prior to like bringing on Jackson, who now runs the audio board and runs the camera. Like I was, driving. So really last year, Jackson, actually, his first week he started was producing clips for the U.S. Open at Pinehurst, but he still wasn't traveling with us on site. And so the first 3 majors of the year, like I'm just schlepping around, one of these cameras and a tripod and an audio board and, one of those janky Amazon ring lights and just, and it's funny because Pinehurst in the middle of the summer, you're trying to sell that stuff up and I'm sweating through my shirt and you're also like, that you do all this build out and you check in on everything, but then you have to also be thinking about how am I going to host this show? You're wearing a lot of hats at the same time. So we had Dan Hicks on and I had this really funny setup that I'd been like sketching out in my head for a couple of hours and how I was gonna tell a joke and laugh. And so we start the interview and I set it up and I get a big laugh and it's great. And I look over at the audio board and I've not hit record on top of the thing. And I was sick. I was like, I cannot, does anyone have that anywhere? Because it's one of the best things I've ever done in my life is making Dan Hicks laugh off a setup for an interview, me hosting with the host. But then we restarted it and he kind of made a good joke on the back end about we had an even better version of that when you initially, so that became content. And that's a good story in and of itself is as a young producer, I used to get so scared and nervous of what happens if I mess up. And instead of saying, that's an opportunity, you mess up and then you just lean into that and poke fun at that and make that into something fun. And then the content becomes even more relatable. So it was a funny one, but it was one that actually turned out pretty good.
I can just I feel like I can feel that. I can feel that feeling. That gives me almost anxiety just thinking about that. That's just, I mean, obviously not even nothing to that same, I was literally telling Chase, the last time I went and played golf, I forgot my SD card to my camera. That's what I go and take pictures of courses and I freaking forgot the SD camera.
That's a big piece. That's a big piece. And then even for these shows now, because Jackson's in Minnesota, so I'm driving it all down. So I'm doing trying to pack production equipment while also, keeping 2 children under 2 alive. It's a lot of balls in the air, a lot of juggling going on. And it seems like I didn't forget anything this week, other than maybe some adapters for some audio cables. But you do the best you can, then you try to make up the rest on the road.
Yeah, definitely impressive. So I want to hear about what is preparing for a major week. What does that look like for you guys?
I think it's it doesn't change a ton, and it does change a ton. I mean, I think that in terms of, we all agree the quality of show is so much better when we're together in person, and they're just realities of life. My family and I have put roots down in Durham, North Carolina. That's not to say I wouldn't move to Birmingham, Alabama if the opportunity was right and it all made sense for us, for their schooling and financially and whatever else. But right now I'm in Durham, Smylie's in Birmingham, Jackson's in Minnesota, so you have to do these things remote. Doesn't mean you can't do a good show, but it just means the one when you're together is so much better. There's obviously a little more prep that goes into certain sales segments of, we're making picks that we do every week, but there's also something attached to it. You want to make sure you get all those things right for the people that pay to put the show on. But in terms of the content stuff, I really think that it sounds bad, but it really is just Smylie and I will just call each other and just have 30-minute conversations on the phone about things that interest us in golf. And then you kind of just workshop it as you go. Some of our best shows have just been as a result of us brainstorming a couple hours before our record as to what really interests you about this player or this tournament, or is there a device we can create to tee up this conversation in a more interesting way? And then we just go into it. And again, it's not overly prepared. I try to mix in stats for people that like that type of thing as much as I can, but at the end of the day, it's just us just having watched a ton of golf and knowing these guys and just having an organic conversation. And then the other thing that changes major weeks is frequency. We do a couple of additional journals. We do daily recaps every day. And then if you're on site and you get a good guest, that's another thing too. But Masters, we recorded 8 shows in 7 days in the Masters. And you left that place and you're like, man, it was rewarding, but you're exhausted.
Yes. Yeah, that's a lot. So talking about PGA Championship this week is at Quail Hollow.
Yeah.
You mentioned to me that you've actually had the chance to play Quail Hollow.
Yes.
What's the feeling of playing that course compared to from the media side and watching it and seeing the tour players play it?
It's, so I played with Taylor Zarza, who was the guy he was my boss when I was an intern in college, who brought me back to PGA Tour Radio. So he's a member there. He's an awesome guy. And we played it, I'm trying to remember which tee we played it from. I think the tips is the 1 birds, and maybe we played it from the 3 birds or something like that. So it's, I didn't get the full tour experience, nor would I have needed to. I had plenty of course in front of me that day. But I think it's interesting. We were talking about this on our preview show last night, like the pop culture criticism that course comes under. And I think some of that, my theory is it's attached to a distaste for Tom Fazio courses, which I don't really understand, because I get why. It's like a painting. You're gonna like a different type of painting than I'm gonna like. You know, that doesn't mean either artist is bad. It just means they just create they use a canvas in a different way. I think Fazio does courses that are real can seem tricked up and kind of ornate and high end, but he also takes a lot of care in creating interesting value propositions for shots that lead to interesting matches or tournaments. Like Diamond Creek's one of my favorite places in the world, and a lot of people poo-poo just going on the side of a mountain in North Carolina and doing this super tricked up thing, but it's like this amazing match play course. I think Quail Hollow asks really interesting questions of tour pros, and maybe questions they don't get asked on a week-to-week basis, especially coming off a week where you just were at Philly Cricket, a wonderful old classic course, but it's 7,100 yards. So a lot of the intrigue of that course gets lost when guys are just flying bunkers and hitting in lob wedges. So I thought Quail was, it's a big canvas. You know, my driver was all over the place that day, and as a result of that, it's like, you know, if you hit it straight, especially from the up tees, like, you should have a wedge in your hand. But if you're offline, you're dealing with some trees, interesting bunkers. You have a lot of club in your hand, and those green complexes are not straightforward. So I just find it to be a really interesting test of guys, and I try to kind of listen to those guys too. Like, people say, you know, they want to say about guys being babies or this and that. It's like, if the tour pros are telling you they like the course and it's a fair competition test, like, I'm going to listen to those guys and hear what they say and probably agree with them most of the time.
I'm just thinking, like, counterpoint to that would have been Pinehurst #2 last year, where some of the guys were getting upset about, like, which I thought like, makes it fantastic, because that's what Pinehurst #2 is. You have that scruffy, whatever stuff it's called on the sides.
The sort of native grasses.
Yeah, the native grasses, where you can get a poor liar, you can get lucky, and like.
So, and I know some guys didn't like that, but I think that, you know, most guys, if you let them calm down a little bit after a bad round, will still tell you, like, I think the USGA did a phenomenal job with setup last year, where they got a number that was completely fair. It was a tough course, but it you know, the way you had to go about playing that course was very careful and precise, and it was fitting of a US Open test. And so it just, you know, every course is going to pose a different question and have a different solution. And, you know, I think at Quail, you know, I just hope the conditions are because the sub air on the greens should get the greens nice and firm. They should be fine by the time tournament rolls around. You just hope that, and it's got great drainage too. That's the other benefit of being a tour created course. Like, it's built as a stadium course, and so it should have all the things you need to get that thing ready quickly if you take on a bunch of water. But as long as the course isn't overly soft, I think it'll be a nice test this week.
Definitely. And I think I'm just, like, thinking out loud. I want to see because the course is originally George Cobb.
Correct.
Which I would love, and I hadn't even thought about looking into, like, what did Quail Hollow look like when it was the Cobb course compared to when Fazio came in and did a lot of stuff? Like, I'm very curious how much he actually changed.
Yeah, and I think if you wanted to make a critique of Fazio that I would find fair, it's like he gets a little formulaic with some of his bunkering. You know, like, he really kind of, and that was, like, he did Pinehurst #2 right before Core Crenshaw came back and took it back to a more natural feel. Which, and by the way, I like that version much better than what Fazio did. So it's interesting. I think that it would be interesting to see the Cobb renderings and what was done to you know, tourify it, for lack of a better term. And a lot of that's, like, at the behest of, you know, Johnny Harris has owned that club. Like, that's been his thing forever, and you know, he's going out to get people to work on it for him, but he kind of has in mind what he wants the course to look like or play like. So, you know, maybe the Cobb vision originally worked for, like, the Kemper Open. They had that forever, but, you know, they needed a modern update either way, and the old version wouldn't have worked. But it'd definitely be interesting to go back and look at renderings.
Yes. So, okay. So now I want to stay on brand. This is Palmetto Pine highlighting golf in the Carolinas. So I want to talk about some of your favorite courses. But first, I watched your guys' Tobacco Road video, and you called yourself a Tobacco Road addict. First of all, I mean, I guess I'll continue to kiss your guys' butt for just fantastic content. I thought those two videos were just so good. Your guys banter back and forth. But when you said, I'm a Tobacco Road addict, I was like, yes.
I love that place so much. I love Mike Strantz so much. I mean, it's funny, like, so he did Monterey Peninsula Shore, where my parents are members, and so I played that before playing Tobacco Road. Love that course, and so it's funny. Like the first time we played it, I remember I was on a buddy's trip with a bunch of guys, and we played Pine Needles in the morning. We got dumped on, like just like biblical amounts of rain, and we had to stop on the 11th hole drive-in. We go back to like the cottage. We're putting like our golf shoes in the dryer. They're coming out smelling awful. And then our next thing is we had Tobacco Road in the afternoon, and so we go out there, and I like almost whiffed my tee shot on one, and so it's barely past like that first bunker at like the bottom of that valley. Like it's an awful, truly awful tee shot, and it's still wet, and I'm kind of like jogging down, and I slip and like hit my head and like dang near concussed myself. Now I probably wouldn't help by the number of beverages I consumed that day, but I shot a million. I was like, I hate this place, it's terrible. And then I went home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I just thought about every hole, and then I was playing PGA 2K a lot at that time, so I downloaded the course and I started, and then I went back, I think a couple months later, and played it in a much better mental state and a state of dryness, and loved it. And ever since then, I probably played it, 12, 15 times maybe. I just think it's some people call it gimmicky, but if you boil it down to the type of target golf it is, like it's asking a very specific question on every shot, but it's just camouflaging what the question is. And if you can boil it down to like what exactly do I need to do on this shot, you can shoot a really good score there. And play golf on Mars, which I think is very fun and interesting.
That critique, it comes up a lot, but then I've started to watch a lot of content about like what are some of the courses in Ireland, what do those look like? And some of those like really old courses, they have the blind shots where it's just like you're hitting over a massive mountain. I'm like, that looks like you're playing Tobacco Road.
Why do you need to see everything?
Yeah.
To make it a good golf course? Like who just decided that was like a thing that needed to happen? Like everything has to be in front of me. It's funny because it does connect this week to Quail Hollow, where it's like Quail, like it's all out there in front of you.
Yeah.
Now I can understand why if you're playing for millions of dollars every week, you'd like to be able to show up at a golf course without a ton of prep and know how it's gonna play. But I think discovering gyms like Tobacco Road and then falling in love with them more and more as you go back time and again. Yeah, it's like I went to Scotland with my dad this last summer, and Prestwick, just a wonderfully unique place, and old golf course, but kind of reminded me of a lot of Tobacco Road attributes of just, this is so quirky and I'm never going to forget it. I think that's a mark of a really good golf course.
And so do you guys plan to do Tot Hill Farm?
I would love to. I would love to. I played there after that video, and if I can get Smylie back down, I think it'd be fantastic.
You guys need to do that as like a part 2 to that, as like almost you can do like a Strand series.
Strand series would be a great idea.
That, I think just watching you guys do those, and I think it'd be super entertaining.
Now, I didn't even realize as we played there, they have Zoysia greens at Tot Hill Farm.
Yes.
The greens are Zoysia.
Yes.
This was blowing my mind when I was playing because I kept hitting like chip shots that would land and they wouldn't release. I'm like, is this not Bermuda? I'm like reading the cup like it's Bermuda grain. And I get in like, oh yeah, there's Zoysia greens. Huh. Would have been nice to know that about 18 holes ago. So I thought it was really interesting. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. I mean, the renovation of that's taken, it was in a tough spot a couple years ago. So I love seeing the way that's come back.
Yeah, I went to college at Pfeiffer University, which is probably like maybe 30 minutes from Tot Hill Farm, and I didn't know it was a thing when I was in college.
Oh, really?
And then I graduated and got into golf, and it's when that first day it opened. It was September 4th of 23. Was when it opened after the restoration, and I played that day.
Amazing.
It was so cool. I wanted to experience it that day, but yes, it was not exactly perfect playing conditions.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's a cool place, a really cool place.
So talk to me, do you have other favorite like Carolina courses?
Man, I knew you were gonna ask me this, and I was thinking about this last night, and I almost feel like I have like a top 5 that I'm not gonna rank. So, okay, first I'm going to say honorable mention South Carolina, Cassique. Play Cassique?
No.
So good. Tom Watson design, I think I have that right. And the first 9 holes are like, if you took like a links course from Scotland and dropped it in South Carolina low country, that would be that course. And then the back 9 is basically like a Harbor Town-esque type of feel, kind of low country, more of a classic. But I love playing that course. That was a really unique sort of feel, and so that's my honorable mention. My honorable mention, North Carolina, is going to be Headwaters, a little par 3 across the it's across the street from Wade Hampton and Cashers.
Oh.
And it's this tiny little. It's the most mint condition course you'll ever play in your entire life. And the COVID summer, I spent like 2 hours every day there. It was just the best. So Headwaters is my North Carolina honorable mention. Then I'm going to say for South Carolina, I'm going to put 2 in there in my top 5. I'm going to say Palmetto and Tree Farm. Palmetto is I love, like it's like in a time capsule. You know, it's like $1 a beer. You know, it's this little tiny piece of property. You have holes crossing each other. Kids lives on 17 out there.
No way.
That is such a cool place. And then Tree Farm, I played for the first time coming back from the Masters this year. I think they've done such a great job with using exactly how that property rolls and creating interesting holes and stuff, even down to, I forget which hole it was, like a short par 4, but the creativity in creating functional design features. So like they had this little short par 4 where I was just shipping driver all day long, so I was on 2 hours of sleep, and I was like, you know, let's have some fun. And I hit it into what looked to me from the tee to be like a little creek. What it really was it like a sort of native grass kind of dugout trench type area where if you hit it in there when it's dry, it's like trying to just hit it out of like native grass, hit pine or just something without sand. But when it's wet, it moves water through the property as a sort of a small stream. And then it had these little kind of pop-up little peat dye sort of railroad ties cropped up to give it some definition. Just little touches like that where all around the course they had little things that were functional but aesthetically pleasing and also, you know, playing right into the land they used. So those are my 2 South Carolina courses. Then North Carolina, I'm going to say Old Town, Tobacco Road, and Diamond Creek. I just, you know, different types of Old Town's like unreal. Perry Maxwell Gym, playing that right after Southern Hills hosted the PGA was cool, just to see the way they had the approaches shaved in the same sort of way, and just a really cool piece of property. Tobacco Road we've talked about, love that place to death. And then Diamond Creek, you know, we talked a little bit about Fazio. It's like, it is ornate, it is big, but it's so much fun match play up there, and just, you know, the views are just stunning in the mountains, North Carolina. So a lot of good North Carolina mountain golf, but that's my top 5 with a couple honorable mentions there.
Okay, I love that. Did you, when you were at UNC, did you play Findlay a bunch at that time?
I played Findlay a fair amount, not as much as I should have. You know, I was still just being a dumb 20-something college kid, which is, it's amazing. I kept that feature in my life for so long. You're just really just oblivious to all the good things I had around me. But yeah, Findlay, and I still need to play the redesign, which I'm told is a lot better. You know, 10 and 11 were odd on the old course. So, and then I will say I've been out with Coach DiBattista to see the practice facility out there that Darren, I think it's Darren May, the last name of the guy who works down at Grove 23, designed this state-of-the-art. Like if you go to play golf at the University of North Carolina, you can practice any situation you want to practice to like prepare yourself for next level pro golf. So that practice facility is amazing. And then I like playing, you know, Duke's close to where I live. That's a great course too. A lot of people don't like Reese Jones courses, and I can see why some of them they poo-poo, but I think that one's a cool little routing, a challenging one. And then Lonnie's beautiful. Lonnie Pool out in Raleigh is just, we're really lucky to have the university courses we have in the Triangle.
Yes, some elite college courses. Those are really neat. One thing I meant to ask before, did you pick UNC because of the colors?
No, I mean, great colors, great colors. So my granddad went to UNC. He had 4 daughters. My mom's oldest, she went to Duke. My Aunt Ansley went to Virginia. My Aunt Sandy went to Dartmouth, and my Aunt Virginia went to Washington Lee. And so he like, my mom got into Carolina, and he was all fired up, and then she went to Duke. My grandmother also went to Duke. And so then I was the oldest grandson, and I wanted to go to either stay in California, go to USC, or there are a couple other California colleges. I never thought I was going to get into Carolina. And I got in, I was like, ooh, this could be a completely different life trajectory. And so I went, and then my brother went to Carolina, and my sister went to Carolina. So it's actually very funny in my family now. Of all my cousins, we've all managed to end up in the ACC. Like, and literally of all my cousins, they've either gone to North Carolina, Virginia, or Stanford, or then my brother married a girl who went to Virginia, and my wife went to Virginia Tech. So we have this big ACC family, and it's like never in a million years I think Stanford's going to be in ACC. Like here we are, all in the same conference. Makes it nice and easy. Talk trash.
Stanford,
yeah,
SMU,
yeah.
Cal.
You name it. That's right.
It makes them just huge ACC.
Huge
fans.
ACC, yeah. The biggest ACC brands you can imagine. Some of the longest running and most storied programs in the ACC.
All right. You guys haven't posted your one and dones, right? Yet.
We have.
Oh, you have?
We have. Yeah.
First off, I love those are my favorite things, and I'll go and I'll tail it and
I'm getting smoked this year, dude. It is bad.
I think I hit on. I'm pretty sure Smylie picked Justin Thomas for the RBC, didn't he?
He did.
And
Or
then
did no? I don't know. He did. JT. He picked. He had Ben Griffin at the Zurich. I don't know if he had JT for the. I have to go back and look at that. 'Cause I think he's only picked one winner this season. Oh no, he's picked two. He had Minwoo at Houston Open.
Okay.
And then he had Ben Griffin at Zurich. That's what it was. Yeah.
I was so upset. I had JT, I think, and then the next week I did not take Ben Griffin and Andrew Novak. For whatever reason, just one of those things like, I'm not going to throw any money on it this week. And dang it, just tail Smylie.
Dude, so I think I picked like 8 winners last year, and that was starting from the Mexico Open on. I have 8 missed cuts already this year. I don't know what changed, if I just lost the ability to evaluate, the golfing talent or what. But it's been a tough scene for me this year. But it is fun. Like I think it's anything you can do to pull in. Like everyone cares about golf for different reasons. Some people watch the show because they like to learn about how to play better golf from Smylie and the people he has on. Some people like to hear stories, some people, they just care about the game of pro golf intensely. Other people just like to gamble, and they just want some hot tips from Smylie who's out there, and we try to give them to them. But yeah, it's a fun thing to see the way people interact with Instagram lives, so I took Rory this week and he took Scotty. I mean, pretty chalk.
Yeah.
But I just feel like Rory feels a little bit too good to be true this week, but you can't not take Rory this week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a soft course. It's a long course. He's won here 4 times. He's won 2 PGA Championships, and now he's freed up because he's completed his career Grand Slam. Like I can't pick against that guy. I mean, it's I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes though.
Okay. So I'm gonna kind of going off of that. We'll end this here with it's the PGA Championship starts tomorrow. If we close our eyes, it's Sunday. It's Wanamaker's been handed out. You just mentioned Rory. Who else? Like, what do you think that top 5 looks like? Who do you think's battling it out?
Well, I think I said this on our show as well. Like, for the first time in a really long time, I think we have 6 guys who can all make incredibly compelling arguments for winning this major. We've had a lot where you've had 2 guys, maybe even 3 guys. But it's always been like, this is the clear-cut guy playing the best golf, and then here's like a couple guys that are kind of in and around it. And then these guys, if they get hot this week, they can maybe hoist a trophy. You're coming into this where if we lived in a world where Rory didn't exist, you'd say, there's no way Scotty Scheffler doesn't win this golf tournament. And vice versa, if Scotty doesn't exist, you're saying Rory. I mean, I just listed Rory's resume at Quail Hollow. Scotty's still shorter odds to win this tournament. And then off of that, you have a guy like JT who's won here before, who plays famously very well in PGA Championships, and who has found the form of a guy who used to be considered one of the best players in the world. Now, and he is top 5 in the world, but like JT with a hot putter and around the greens, it could get sketchy around the greens this week with some of the wet spots and stuff like that. This guy's an unbelievable wedge player. He has a very strong argument for it. Xander Schauffele, finally playing good golf now that he's healthy and dealing with the rib stuff. Won 2 majors last year, including a PGA. You can make a great argument for him. And that's without talking about, if we're talking about a soft course and guys who need to hit it long, Bryson DeChambeau in and around it at multiple majors last year. And we haven't even mentioned John Rahm, who probably feels very motivated to, and you got Jordan Spieth going for a career Grand Slam, and a guy like Brooks Koepka who probably feels slighted by people not talking about him. I think there are so many, not only guys who are playing good, but big names that could be on the top 5 and top 10 of this leaderboard on Sunday. We could be in for one of the best finishes we had at a major in a long, long time. I guess, and that's coming off of Rory winning a career Grand Slam. That's pretty crazy to say. So,
yes, I'm super excited for this week, and so we will end it there. That is Charlie Hulme. He is the co-host of the Smylie Kaufman Show. If for some reason you have never watched it, you gotta. It's great content. So, Charlie, thank you.
Let's go play some golf, man.
Let's go smack around some balls.